What's up, guys?
It's Mundane Miracle Monday.
Yay.
As you can see, if you're watching, we're sitting on a couch. Praise the Lord. If you're listening, we're sitting on a couch.
If you didn't listen to one of our past episodes, we talked about how our couch we had in our old apartment didn't fit, and that was very sucky. But
Very sucky.
we found this, and it's perfect. Like, it fits the space so perfectly. So we're very happy. Shout out to S&J's Furniture in Hamilton, Ohio. So if anyone is local and you need furniture,
Definitely go there.
yeah.
Definitely. We had such a positive experience.
Yeah. And
Shout out to Jessica.
Yeah, shout out. Yeah, so we're very happy.
Yeah, it's so comfy cozy. We love it.
It is like we obviously haven't even broke it in yet, but
We literally got it this morning.
yes, and it's already like comfy and soft, and we love it so much.
Yeah. I'm so thankful. It fills out our space really nicely and just brings everything together. So we're very, very thankful and happy and blessed that
Yeah,
we got this couch at just the right time.
literally just the right time.
Everything fell into place. It was a miracle. Mundane miracle.
Yeah. So, what is our topic today?
Selfishness.
It's a good one.
Yeah, we've been talking about selfishness a lot, just like in our own personal lives over the last couple weeks. And last night, as I was reading the Bible, I was in James, and I was like, wow, the Bible's pretty like straight up. We were talking about this morning, like that's pretty straight up about like how you should live.
Yeah.
Like there's no really like, it's not watered down.
No.
And Angelica was reading Proverbs last night, and it was like, the NIV is like so funny to me. Like, I grew up reading the NIV, so like, I don't know. It's just like, it felt so harsh reading it last night. It's because it is. But it's like, don't be lazy or you're literally the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I was reading something in Isaiah last night, and I think it was in Isaiah, and it said something about, though you are a lowly worm. And I was like, I am a lowly worm.
This one verse in Proverbs says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest." So, like, if you're lazy and don't work hard for, like, your goals and things you need and provide for your family, and you just let laziness overtake you, you're literally worse than an ant. Like, literally, even an ant knows what to do, and they have no guidance. They just know what to do, and they do it.
Yeah.
An ant. They're like little things we squash. Wow. So the Bible is cool. Like, it's just like so much more real than I think like a lot of people realize, and it's not so like cookie cutter as like I feel like some people try to make it. And a lot of the verses you grow up on in church is like just like the more, I mean, all the Bible is good, don't get me wrong, but just like the more like basic or like soft
Fluffy
things, yeah. And there's so much more to it. So yeah, let's talk about selfishness.
Okay. In James 3, the end of James 3, it says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceful, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." That's the ESV. And I think I'm going to read it from the Passion Translation too, because I don't know, it has a different punch to it. You know what I mean? Sometimes the different versions do different things to you.
That's very true.
So in the Passion Translation, it says, "If you consider yourself to be wise and one who understands the ways of God, advertise it with a beautiful, fruitful life, guided by wisdom's gentleness. Never brag or boast about what you've done, and you'll prove that you're truly wise. But if there is bitter jealousy or competition hiding in your heart, then don't deny it and try to compensate for it by boasting and being phony. For that has nothing to do with God's heavenly wisdom, but can be described as the wisdom of the world, both selfish and devilish. So wherever jealousy and selfishness are uncovered, you will also find many troubles and every kind of meanness. But the wisdom from above is always pure, filled with peace, considerate and teachable. It is filled with love and never displays prejudice or hypocrisy in any form, and it always bears the beautiful harvest of righteousness. Good seeds of wisdom's fruit will be planted with peaceful acts by those who cherish making peace. I think I've read this passage before, like in our jealousy podcast, because it talks about jealousy in here too. But I think jealousy like stems from selfishness when you think about it. But I just think that it's so like it packs a punch when it says, wherever jealousy and selfishness are uncovered, you will also find many troubles and every kind of meanness. Hello.
That's crazy.
And like, that's talking about your own heart. Like, you are in charge of uncovering that in your own life. And it's true that like, if you're in relationship with people who are selfish, you're going to encounter some issues.
Yeah.
But really, like, you're responsible for your own actions. You're responsible for your own selfishness and dealing with that.
Yeah, and that's crazy that it's like selfishness is just like the outer
umbrella.
Yeah, the umbrella. And then open that thing up and there's so
every
much
kind
more.
Of meanness.
Yeah. So that's crazy. like when you see selfishness coming from somebody, that's only like the small part of what is going on inside of them.
Yeah.
And so that's like a very scary thing about selfishness. And like obviously we all have to deal with that in ourselves. Like you said, like we all probably have some spots where we might have selfishness, and like there's stuff we need to uncover about ourselves. But we also need to like look out for those people that are selfish, because that means that like they obviously can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Because if there's so much more to uncover, that means that is just like honestly like an evil-hearted person.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's saying, like meanness.
Yeah.
Of all kinds.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think like I love when the Bible like gives you this harsh truth and then tells you, but the wisdom from above is always pure, filled with peace, considerate and teachable, filled with love and never displays prejudice or hypocrisy, and it always bears the beautiful harvest of righteousness. And so I think that's important to look in your own life and in other people's lives and see, what fruit are they bearing?
Yeah.
Are they bearing the fruit of righteousness? Am I bearing the fruit of righteousness? Am I filled with peace? Is my wisdom always pure? Am I filled with love and never display prejudice or hypocrisy?
Yeah.
No. The answer is no. For all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But that gives you something to work toward. Not in a works-based salvation type of deal, but like this is how we should be striving to live, because this is the truth of everything that Jesus embodied.
Yeah.
And he is our example, and that is what we should be striving to be like. And I mean, I just think it's crazy that it even says, if you consider yourself to be wise and one who understands the ways of God, like if that's what you think about yourself, advertise it with a beautiful, fruitful life.
Yeah.
It's literally like that is the will of God for us. It's in like scripture. Like he wants us to be filled with righteousness,
peace, love,
not selfishness. Full disclaimer. This is like really hard.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's hard to know, especially in our world today, where everything is about selfishness and everything is about self-love and, oh, I'm going to protect my peace and I need to do this for my own benefit, and I can't deal with this because me.
Yeah.
And to a degree, that is needed. But we have taken it too far.
Yes, because you can have boundaries for yourself without it being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know where that line is.
And that is so hard. It's so hard.
But I think you're very good at it. So I want
Really?
Yes. I think you are a very selfless person.
Oh, I thought you meant the other way around.
No.
I have a hard time.
No, you're good at selflessness is what I mean.
Yeah, I'm not good at the boundaries, though.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. That's where I got mixed up. But so what do you, I know it kind of says right there, like righteousness, love, unprejudiced, like whatever. But like, what are some ways you think that you can like fix selfishness? Like, what are some ways that you think this is what is walking in selfishness, and then this is what's how to be selfless?
I think what you were talking about last night in our conversation about selfishness, like how you take every thought captive, and when you think about like, oh, I really don't want to do this thing. Like if somebody asks you for help or something and you're like, oh, I really don't want to do that. Like examine that, investigate that. Why don't you want to do that? Is it because
You just don't feel like it?
you just don't feel like it? Like then that is selfishness.
Yeah.
If it's because, I guess like the difference, it's really hard for me personally to determine the difference of like if I really don't have the capacity for it, because I also feel like the Lord will give you strength.
Yeah.
If you are being selfless, the Lord will give you the strength and the ability to like pour yourself out more.
And it's also rewarding.
It's so rewarding.
Because
That's why I love it.
Yeah.
I love helping people.
Exactly, because afterwards you're like, wow, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
Like, I actually feel good that I helped somebody. You're not like going into it and like the whole time you're like, oh, I wish I would have stayed in bed. I mean, I'm sure that
Yeah,
if
sometimes.
if you're having very selfish thoughts, but like afterwards it just feels good to know that like you actually did it.
Yeah,
no
you
matter
are a
what
part
it is.
of like helping somebody's life improve,
Yeah.
or like whatever. Like,
And also thinking like, I would hope that someone would do the same for me.
yeah,
So it's like you should do it regardless,
Right.
you know, like that's what selflessness is like, I'm not doing this for what I can get out of it.
right.
It's really hard to know that like you're doing something and you might not get it in return. And I know that's again where the line is, because you don't want to like constantly overextend yourself and never the person like just use you. You shouldn't let somebody use you when you know and become conscious of the fact that like you keep doing things and people keep taking from you. Like, I think that is a good line. Like, I think you should never like allow yourself to be used. But when it's like your motivation is like, well, I'm only going to do this if they'll do it for me. Or like when you go into it with that mindset, I think like that's just like selfishness. But yeah, again, you have to have that line, because I think it's okay to have those boundaries, that it's like, okay, I have helped this person time and time and time and again, and all they do is like treat me like crap after, or they never even like thank me, they're never appreciative, they're never like any of those things. I think it's fair to like, okay, I have done good on my part. I know in my character has shown that it has all come from a good heart, but also like have a boundary of like, well, I am not going to be like used and mistreated, and that's fine. What do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like really hard for me, because I also think like people are not always in a position to be able to like reciprocate, you know? And like sometimes you're not going to get that treatment back. And part of me wonders like, because you don't want to, there's that stupid saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's not stupid, it's true, but
Yeah.
I just hate little cliches like that. But like, does the person, I'm asking, does the person that you're pouring out to have to be the one that fills you up? Because what if you're pouring out to somebody that like genuinely does not have the means to pour into you? But what if you're getting poured into by other people? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a good question.
Yeah. Because ultimately, like, we need to be filled up with Christ, by Christ.
Yeah.
Because if we look at the life of Jesus, he poured out literally his whole life.
Yeah.
And what did anybody do for him?
Yeah, that's very true.
And so he would go away at times to be filled up with his Father. Do you know, like, what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's also, like, the difference of, like, knowing if someone is intentionally using you or if you are genuinely just helping someone who's really in need.
Yeah.
Because, again, like, the Bible talks a lot about people with, like, ill intent, like, people who have bad motives, like, ulterior motives and, like, bad intentions. And I don't think that we should ever allow ourselves to be, like, used, you know? But I think it's different if, like you said, if someone else is pouring into us so we can then pour into somebody who really needs the help and they don't have the ability or capacity to, like, do anything back. But again, I think that's just that line that you have to, like, figure out and, like, also use discernment.
Yeah, that's true.
But ultimately, like, it does go back to Jesus, and, like, that is true that is true selflessness, to lay down your life, to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And even if it might be sacrificing a meal, sacrificing your sleep, sacrificing something you love because you know that it could help someone else better. Like, that's why we should not be led by our feelings, because who cares that you feel too tired to, like, help someone in need?
Yeah.
Make that sacrifice that you're going to put your life to the side and go out and help that person who's in need, and just, like, sacrifice something. Like, if you look at your life and you see no sacrifice on your part, that's a problem. Like, if you really think about a sacrifice and think about, wow, I actually don't know what I've sacrificed. I actually think that everything that I do in my life is for me, what benefits me. And because it's all about me. And that's how a lot of people, and, like, we all do in some ways, again, like, we are not exempt from that. But I think it's really important to be conscious of that. Like, I have times where I literally think, like, ugh, I don't feel like doing that, even if it's something so small and simple. But I think, like, I'll think, like, well, they need that right now, they need me right now, like, or sometimes I'll even think, like, they would do that for me, so who am I to freaking be selfish and think, like, oh, I'm just don't even feel like doing that. Like, it's just such a selfish thought, and, like, we resort to selfishness, like, that is, like, our default. And it's crazy, but it's because we're, you know, a sinful nature. Like, we have to train ourselves to be selfless. It does not come naturally.
No,
not at all.
It doesn't. I think, like, I have a hard time, like, with the balance of, like, taking care of myself, because I think that that's biblical too, like, taking care of your own, like, needs. And I have a hard time balancing that with pouring myself out. And it's really hard for me to accept, like, Vanessa actually pointed this out to me. It's hard for me to accept when people pour into me. Because I'm so scared of being selfish. And so when somebody's pouring into me, I'm like, oh no, I should be doing something for you. So that's what I'm working through these days. I mean, I've been working through that for years.
I'm the same way with, like, accepting anything from anybody, because I'm like, oh, now I owe that to them. Like, now, like, I cannot simply just accept it. I have to think of, how can I, like, give back, and how can I do it even better? Like, that is a really hard thing to do when you're, like, a helpful person. Like, you want to help people, but you don't even know how to, like, just accept it and be okay with that. And that's, I think that's something we're both learning. And I feel like it's also because a lot of people do stuff for you and expect things in return. Or, like, they'll hang it over your head, or, like, it'll just come back to bite you sometimes when you accept something from someone and you think, like, at the time it's a gift. And it's like, there's been so many times where you just, like, accept things because you're like, wow, that's nice, like, they're doing this for me, and
because you know that you wouldn't expect anything in return, so why would you expect them to expect something in return or expect it back?
And then so it's like, when you've been, like, burned like that, then you think, like,
oh, well, I'm never gonna accept anything from anybody ever again.
So, like, whenever anyone else does it that might actually have good intentions,
Yeah.
you automatically are thinking like, what are they going to want from me after this? Like, what are they, whatever. So it's that's a really hard thing to learn as well.
I guess, I mean, is that selfishness?
What?
To not accept like things from people because you're afraid of what they're going to ask or what they're going to want?
Yeah, I think it's
a type of
of selfishness and fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're like already thinking of like the bad basically. And again, that's why we have to like
check ourselves take every thought captive and like know where those lines are and know. I don't know. It's like hard because I'm such an advocate for like know your own capacity for like helping people and like doing things and like you don't want to burn yourself out. I've been burned out. Like I've gone through burnout so many times in my little life. Like I'm not even 30 and I've gone through burnout so many times. And like compassion fatigue is so real. Like all of these things are legitimate. And I think I am such an advocate for that for other people. But I'm really bad at it for myself.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm like, yeah, like you take that nap, you take that time to like whatever. And don't get me wrong, I love to take a nap. But I have a hard time like just knowing when to take time for myself. And even like I said last night to you that my like bedroom is a reflection of that because like it's not tidy, it's not clean, it's not organized, nothing. We did just move, so but it wasn't even before that either. So it's like that's the kind of stuff that I think like it would honor God for me to take that time to like organize things and put things away and make it tidy because it would make me feel more at peace to be in like an organized room. And so like that would be honoring to God, but it does feel selfish to take that time for myself to do those things when I could be doing something for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes from like toxic church culture growing up.
Everything stems back to
that. And just like everything that we were taught when we were kids was like, we are so like undeserving of anything.
Yeah.
And so like, don't even expect anything ever and don't ever do anything nice for yourself because self-care is not biblical. But that's not true. But it's hard to unlearn that.
Mm-hmm. And it's also hard when you do have that burnout that makes you like question kind of like, what is the point of being a nice person if all you do is get burned? Like, and a lot of people are affected by that too. Like there are so many people out there that they have a tough exterior, but you happen to talk to them and you realize that they're very kind. And I think that's just a representation of someone that is a very nice person but's been burned by so many people that they have like a hard outer shell now because they don't want that to happen again. And some people just kind of stop being nice because they're like, all it ever does is get me used or abused or mistreated. And it's hard, but again, that is selfish. As much as it's
self-protecting.
It is. And it does suck. It sucks to be a nice person and be giving and helpful, and people literally don't appreciate it. They treat you like terribly, and then even when people just like, then they put all the blame of a situation on you when all you were was just like giving and helpful and kind the whole time. And like and I'm not saying this in like a unself-aware like a victim like, oh, I was just the perfect person. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like in situations where you just like did nothing but help somebody and then they just throw you
under the bus
or like they just start treating you bad, and it really makes you question everything. And so I understand that perspective too of like, I've been nice, I've tried it, it doesn't work, it doesn't get me anywhere. And also that's the same with like being a genuine person. When you are genuine and honest, it takes a lot longer to get to where you want to be in any situation. And
that's
in
so
life,
true.
In business, if you're willing to lie, cheat, steal, you can get up top real quick.
That's because Satan is the ruler of this world.
Yeah. And also like when you manipulate people to get what you want, you'll get there. But when you're a genuine person, an honest person, everything is such a slow. It's like you're going up a ladder, but as you're going up, the ladder just keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
But they just get the little stool.
The little step stool.
Yeah.
Oh, here I am.
Yeah.
Top
And
of Mount Everest.
literally.
Yeah.
And that's why we should never compare ourselves to people who have made it to some certain point, because we don't know what they did to get there. We don't know if they lied, manipulated, stole, like whatever they did. And so all we can do at the end of the day is just work on ourselves, focus on like what God would want from us and the Bible, because if we sit there and compare, we are not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just think like, well, what would this person do for me? And like constantly just like think that way, I think that is wrong. But again, like there's just
it's a balance.
It's
all a balancing act, and it's so hard. But I think scriptures like this really helped me last night. The first time I read it, I was like, huh? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point. Like, the kingdom of God is an upside down kingdom. Things like that would make sense to us in our like flesh don't make sense in God's spiritual realm. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's very true.
It's so contradictory to what our like logic would have
our
to
understanding.
Say. Yeah, our understanding. And that's why Proverbs tells us to lean not on our own understanding, because it's not going to get us anywhere.
No.
And like these are things that like sometimes you don't fully understand it, and you just have to walk in obedience to the best of your ability, and you have to listen to the Holy Spirit. And I love that there's like a what not to do and a what to do.
Yeah. And that is actually so much of the Bible, but we just don't like take that in like we should.
Yeah. Because like, let's like leave other people aside and focus on ourselves and evaluate, am I producing this fruit?
Yeah.
Am I producing the fruit that is the opposite of selfishness?
Yeah, and not think about like, what do I want, or what does my logic tell me, like my understanding?
Yeah. And it's just hard. And it is a balancing act, because you don't want to be used or taken advantage of. But honestly, I think it's better to be put at risk of being used than to be selfish.
Yeah, that's true, because it's overall about your own character.
Yes.
That's where your salvation and like that's where your reputation, like everything lies in you and your character. You cannot change someone else's character.
Exactly.
And if they show being a user as their character, that does not affect us.
Exactly. That's between them and God.
Yeah.
And
but
it's
we know
our response.
We did right on our end. Yeah. Even if they may have treated us wrong, God honors the fact that we acted honorable.
Yeah.
Like when we walk in righteousness, when we walk in holiness, we walk in love, we walk in peace, all of those things, it's not about us. It's not about other people. It's literally about what God calls us to do.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like, it's really, it boils down to it's not about us, and it's not about other people. Yeah. It's all about God.
And honoring him.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a breakthrough moment on the podcast.
Yeah. Because when we're talking about things, we are like learning it together and like with the podcast.
Like,
it's
this
not
is
like,
us processing this.
Yeah, we're
right
not
now.
trying to like say this is what you should do and we are good at it, because that's not
we're
true.
Not.
The whole reason we're talking about it is because this is something we have been talking about the past couple days, and we're actually starting to talk about it more today, and we were like, let's put it on the podcast. Yeah. So it's basically just like y'all are here with us.
Yeah, you're listening to us process, learn, figure stuff out, and like, yeah. I also wanted to read a little bit of chapter 4 in James, because it bleeds right over into this. So at the beginning of chapter 4, it says, "What is the cause of your conflicts and quarrels with each other? Doesn't the battle begin inside of you as you fight to have your own way and fulfill your own desires?"
Wow.
"You jealously want what others have, so you begin to see yourself as better than others. You scheme with envy and harm others to selfishly obtain what you crave. That's why you quarrel and fight. And all the time you don't obtain what you want because you won't ask God for it. And if you ask, you won't receive it, for you're asking with corrupt motives, seeking to only fulfill your own selfish desires. You have become spiritual adulterers who are having an affair with an unholy relationship with the world.
Oh my gosh.
Don't you know that flirting with the world's values places you at odds with God? Whoever chooses to be the world's friend makes himself God's enemy.
Oof.
And that's exactly what we were saying.
Yeah.
Is that like the kingdom of God doesn't make sense to us in our own fleshly like minds. And flirting with the world's values places you at odds with God. Like, so the world right now, what does the world value? Selfishness.
Selfishness.
And that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I love that it says you're not getting what you want because you're not asking God for it.
Yeah.
Like, ask him and he will provide it for you if your motives are pure.
Yeah.
Because it goes
That's
on
the
to
key
say,
thing.
yes, if you ask and you won't receive it because you're asking with corrupt motivation. You're only seeking to fulfill your own selfish desires.
Wow.
So if you're asking God, like, I don't know, if you're asking God to give you more strength and more like endurance because you're pouring yourself out, helping other people, and you want to continue to do that and also take care of yourself, that's like pure. That's pure motives. If you're asking God, oh, please give me the strength to get out of bed because
I don't want to.
I don't want to. Like, girl, just get out of bed. Like, sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. And like, that is a selfish motivation because why don't you want to get out of bed? Just get out of bed.
Yeah. That's also why we're supposed to like seek wisdom and obtain it and like act on that. Like, we don't always have to be waiting for a sign or waiting for like someone to do it for you. You need to just like be wise.
Do it.
Yeah. If your decision was made in wisdom, then it's going to be good.
Yeah. And sometimes like, sometimes it honors God more to like just make a decision.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you have sought God, if you have sought godly counsel, if you like are torn between these two things and you're like, man, I don't know. And you're paralyzed and you don't make a decision, then like, how is that God honoring? If he's giving you these two options and you don't make a choice and you stay stuck where you are, like, you're not going to move forward with your life and you're not going to have any fruit produced in your life. And so making the choice honors God. And he can redeem. If you there's no such thing, I don't think. If you are seeking God and walking in wisdom, you're not going to make a wrong choice. Because even if you're presented with two options and you think, what if I choose the wrong one? Even if you do, God can redeem that.
Yeah.
And the wrong one. I mean, if you look at the life of Jonah, like, God's will is going to be fulfilled no matter what. And you can either partner with him.
He was walking in selfishness.
Yes.
He did not want to go to Nineveh.
But God gave him chance after chance after chance because he was like, I want you to partner with me. Like, I want you to experience this with me. And I know that you're going to, like, I know that this is going to be good for you. So, like, let's do it together. And even after all of that,
there was redemption.
People were saved. A whole city was saved. And Jonah sat back and waited for their destruction. And he was like, come on, what the heck? But his preaching was too good. But even to the end, he didn't want to see good things for Nineveh. But God still used that.
Yeah.
And God still redeemed that whole situation. And like, I think we talk a lot about the sovereignty of God. And I think the redemption of God is like just as important as the sovereignty, because he couldn't be sovereign without redemption.
No, man, this is good.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good thing for us to work on ourselves and to really think about and even talk about more, honestly.
Yeah. And like hold each other like accountable and also like help each other find where our boundaries are, find where our lines are, and work on that with each other. Yeah. Because we're safe people, like for each other. And I think that's like also a key. Like you have to have a circle, or you have to have a community of people that you can rely on to tell you the truth.
Yes. Somebody that is not going to just tell you what you want to hear all the time. I'm sure like sometimes stuff I say to Mariah catches her off guard because I'm just like, that's not good, or that's whatever. But like, that's the only way you can grow, is if someone is willing to like point out those things in love, not in like
I never
judgment.
Whenever you like correct me on something, I never feel like you're like doing it in a like conceited way, or like I know better than you. You're very like straightforward about it, but I think it's because we have that level of like mutual trust and understanding that I'm just like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you can see it that way, because I feel like sometimes other people can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard for me because it's either I am straightforward, or I feel like I have to like pretend.
Yeah.
So I can't, I don't know, I guess there's some people I have to find that middle ground with, where I can like be straightforward and like a way they can understand maybe. Yeah. But sometimes like stuff does just kind of have to hit you in order for you to get it.
And that's
how I am.
Last night when I read this, for that has nothing to do with God's heavenly wisdom, but can be described as the wisdom of the world, both selfish. I was like, oof, dang. Like, the Bible hits ya.
Yeah.
And if we're, like, I don't know, sometimes you just have to
get over how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And be willing to, like, accept correction.
Which
Proverbs talks about.
Is in here. It says, like, but the wisdom from above is always pure, filled with peace, considerate, and teachable. You have to be teachable. You have to have a soft heart and be willing to be corrected. I'm not always good at that.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
I'm not either.
Like, I get very defensive sometimes, but it takes me a minute or a couple days to marinate on it. And then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, you're kind of right about that.
Yeah, but I know it's somewhere in Proverbs it says that, like, basically, like, if you hate correction, you're a fool.
That's real.
Yeah, and so that's something I had to learn, like, the more I grew up, because I was very, like, defiant, and I still can be sometimes, but I always, like you said, I do, like, self-reflect after and think, like, maybe they are right. Maybe I do need to look at myself and, like, be more self-aware, be more conscious of the way I do things or say things. But, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy how the Bible is right.
Right? So, what was your mundane miracle of the week?
Oh, man. I've had a roller coaster of a week. I think the one that sticks out to me is on Sunday when we went into the city and did a photo shoot, and we got to see the most beautiful golden hour.
Oh my gosh, yes.
On top of a parking garage. Like, that was really just like a nice warm hug from God.
Yeah. That was perfect.
Yeah.
So since I do like delivery work, sometimes you never know like how well the days are going to go. If you're going to make bank that week, if it's going to be like a little slower, whatever. And so lately it's been very slow.
Yeah.
And the other day I was like super tired. Like I never take naps, but I was like, for once I like wanted to take a nap. I was so exhausted. I didn't get sleep. And like I laid down, but I turned on the app anyways, because I was like, maybe if I get something good. And I ended up getting an order that was good. I was like, okay, this will just get me out of bed. And so I went out and I made so much money that night.
Yeah.
So again, that was just like a perfect example of like, who cares how you feel in that moment? Yeah. Get up. Just get up. Just do what you need to do.
Work hard. Be obedient.
And it was rewarding.
Yep.
It was like the best day I've had in a long time work-wise.
Yeah.
And I really needed that. And yeah, so that was awesome.
That was awesome.
Thanks for listening, guys.
See you next week.
Peace.